call this regular session of the Board of Education to order. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Mr. Price, followed by a moment of silence. Anyone not wishing to participate may stay seated.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. We'll begin tonight's meeting with recognitions of our retirees, our 25-year club, our Teacher of the Year, and Service Employee of the Year.
Good evening, everyone. It's always very nice occasion to honor these folks. It's a little bit bittersweet because in some cases some of them only a couple days left and some of them are already done. But it's nice to honor them. I'm going to try to say a little bit about each one. I took a few minutes and went through everyone's personnel file to try to get an idea of how your career went. Some of you have pretty hefty personnel files. In some cases, I think because your first job recommendation was chiseled on a piece of stone. But you don't have to take that personally. So what I'm going to do is ask, if you're here this evening, when I say your name, to stand up. I'm going to say a little bit about you. And after we finish the retirees, have all of the retirees go towards where the cake was. And Joe Beth's going to take a picture, and then there's a gift over there for your retirees. We've got you all a little clock with an inscription on it, and hope that you will look at it and think of your time with Wetzel County Schools fondly. First off, we have a bus operator, Kevin Durig. I don't know if Kevin's here or not. He's not here. Kevin spent some time as a mechanic, a sub-bus operator, and ran several different bus routes over the 27 years he worked for Wetzel County Schools. Robert Nice, also a bus operator, and he was full-time on several different routes, and he spent 13 years with us here. Mr. Aaron Vigilati, who I know is here. And Mr. Vigilati, over the course of his career, has taught special ed, third grade, and also he's done some girls basketball coaching and some football coaching, and he's got about 25 years with us. And as you'll see later, he's got some other honors as well. So Mr. Aaron Vigilati. Kim Hott. Kim finished up as a special education aide at Magnolia High School. She spent some time as special education aide, a teacher's aide, an autism mentor, and even spent some time in a kindergarten classroom, if I read that correctly. So, and over her 12 years. So thank you, Ms. Kim. Thank you. Velma Hupp. Velma leaves us after 24 years and has spent time as a school secretary at Long Drain School and Shortline School. So glad to have you, and hope you enjoy your retirement. Virginia Morris. I've done the math right, around 29 years with us here, and has spent time as a custodian, a classroom teacher's aide, and a special ed bus aide in her 29 years. Thank you. Earl Shreve. He's here. Earl has spent 30 years with us as a custodian, finishing up at Payton City High School. Jill Brown. Jill leaves us after 31 years, if I've done the math correctly, has spent some time teaching kindergarten, first grade as a cheer coach, did some early start, and finished up with, I think, for a long time. In fact, I think when I started, you were teaching kindergarten to Shortline. So, yeah, so 30 years in kindergarten, 31 total with us. So Jill Brown. Joanna Felez. Joanna leaves us after 27 years. She was a school secretary at Long Drain School and Payton Elementary School and finished up as a coordinator at the board office. And I'm going to miss her because she's my coordinator, and we've had a pretty fun run the past year and change. And Joanna, I'll miss you, but I wish you the best. Thank you. Danny Tyler. Danny leaves us after 10 years and has spent time as a sub-custodian and as a full-time custodian at Magnolia and New Martinsville School. Teresa Standiford. Teresa leaves us with 25 years. She's been a special education teacher, a kindergarten teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and finished up as a director of elementary at the board office. So congratulations, Teresa. And Terry Locke. Terry leaves us after 32 years. She spent some time as a special ed teacher and a lot of times as a second grade teacher at New Martinsville School. And as I learned today and told her I was interested to learn, she spent some time as assistant girls soccer coach. So congratulations. And ask all of you to go towards the cake and get your picture. And an interesting fact, between those retirees, we are sad to see go 226 years of education experience. Okay, on to our 25-year folks. These are folks who have completed their 25th year with Wetzel County Schools, and if you're here this evening, please stand up. I'm not going to say quite as much because I'm going to reserve that for when you retire, and I hope for some of you it's a long time from now. Natalie Kitko, who's a math teacher at Valley High School. Diane Brown, who's a special education teacher at the Tech Center. Oh, okay. I'll talk louder. Sean Snedden, math teacher at 100 High School. Paula Cumberledge, second grade teacher at Long Drain School. Ernie Farabee, custodian at Payton City High School. Mark Loy, who serves as our custodian, inventory supervisor, and mail clerk at the Board of Education. And I wish he was here tonight because I would like to razz him a little bit. And Richard Aaron Ritz, who's a bus operator. And remember, retirees, if you'd come back over, I forgot to give you your clock. I want to make sure you have that.
Very close. Get that clock.
And I mentioned earlier that we would have to get to talk about somebody else, and we're going to go ahead and publicly recognize our Teacher of the Year, Mr. Aaron Vigilati. And I don't know, is Julie here tonight? I don't think she's here. But we'd also like to publicly recognize our Service Employee of the Year, Julie Lettergerber. And with my best Sheldon impression, one more fun fact. Between the 25-year club and our retirees, there's over 450 years of educational experience. So it says a lot about people.
Do you want me to announce them? Our Golden Horseshoe winners for this year, Olivia Homan and Jacob Norton. I'm not sure if they were able to make it, but excellent job with the Golden Horseshoe winners.
Okay, there's one more name that didn't get on there that we need to recognize tonight. This person has been a keystone for the board. And I'm going to cry. That's me. He's been my mentor. He's been there for understanding and knowing so much about the board. We are going to be lost without him. But in recognition of our sage, Mr. Price, I couldn't find a sage to give you as a gift. But this is from us. Thank you. Okay, now I can calm down. The next presentation will be Tim Starkey and Molly.
You need it?
I don't think so. I'll use my outside voice. My name, for all you don't know, my name is Tim Starkey. I'm the Communities and School Site Coordinator placed at New Martinsville School. And this is Molly, our therapy dog that we got in May. We got her from a program called Friends with Paws through the governor's office, endorsed by Kathy Justice. Kind of the day in life of Molly is, she shows up at school, she goes to school every day, she meets and greets the students, she visits the classrooms, the kids read to her. She was lucky enough to get placed with us right before school ended, so she was able to attend all the year-end parties. She goes to all the sporting events. She was able to go to the band and choir program at the end of the year. She works really with students. We've had some students who have maybe having a tough day, and we've had some instances even at the end of the year where she was able to go in a room and calm the students down. So she's been a great addition to our school, and we look forward to getting back next year. She's on summer break right now. She's kind of losing a little bit of her edge, but she'll get it back. So we're excited to have her. We were one of 28 schools in the state that has been awarded therapy dog. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Next thing on the agenda is the superintendent's information. First thing is approval of minutes from the June 11th, 2024 meeting. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Price. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Nice. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next, we have personnel matters, resignations of professional personnel, service personnel, extracurricular, employment of extended school year effective June 17th through July 12th, 2024. Do we have a motion for approval of the superintendent's recommendations as outlined under personnel matters?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Costello. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Glasscock. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Under routine matters, we have two things for use of facilities and for an automatic bus wash system. Is there a motion for approval of the superintendent's recommendations as outlined under routine matters? Also move. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's been seconded by Mr. Price. Discussion?
Just for clarification, no, Mr. Lancaster, this bus wash system was part of that overall package that we had decided when we agreed to build a bus garage.
Yes, it's a cost we would have paid anyway, it just would have been in the bid. Problem was, it was discovered that everything, all the connections to that bus wash bay, all the water connections, everything that we needed was in the bid. The actual, the system itself wasn't in the bid, so if it would have been included in the price, we would have had to pay for it anyway, but because we discovered it wasn't in those bids, we've got to purchase it ourselves, which we get a better price actually, like there's no contractor markup. It's the same system that Tyler County has in their bus garage. It's already been bid out, and so we just move forward with that. You know, our buses are roughly $5 million in assets. With our 45 buses, is an expensive proposition. We like to keep them in good shape.
Maintaining them is important.
Yeah.
And cleaning them is part of that, and this is a much safer way than the old-fashioned ladder and hose.
Yes.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion? So it's been moved by Mrs. Fawner, seconded by Mr. Price. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Treasurer's report, approval for transfers and increases in the budget.
I'll roll through these quickly. I do have a few. Thank you. I just have a few things for you tonight. Your first page is the budget supplement that I'm asking for. There are a few things there. There are some excess taxes in excess of the budgeted amount. I brought some to you at the last board meeting. We have received a couple other tax collections there, and it's just going to go into the budget. What we don't spend will be part of the carryover, which I'll bring back to you and we'll reallocate. There's a reclassification of bank interest. We've talked about that before. We budgeted the money for local bank interest, but we're able to send some of our excess funds down to the state treasurer's office and earn a higher rate of return there, so I'm bringing that to you. And there's a small refund there of prior year's expenditures. That's just one of those things that happens, and I need to supplement you there. Also, sub-reimbursement for the Invest Conference. There is Michelle Weekly is one of our teachers that it's an agreement we have there that she can go to do this, help with these trainings, but then they'll pay us for her substitute costs. And finally, for the supplement, there are a couple special education grants there. One of them is for, the first one, the $1,500 there is for our new special ed director and some of the trainings that she needs to go to. It's a state grant. And then there's a $15,446 grant for the CPI trainer certifications that we send our teachers to. And then the only other thing you see there is transfers, which is routine at this time of year. You know, this is our last meeting before the end of the fiscal year, so there's going to be a lot of moving money from one line item to another. You know, things like, an example, bus garage. You know, we budgeted an amount for a temporary bus garage rental, some space to rent. That's what we put in the budget, but we know we didn't do that. We developed our own plan for that. So there's money in that line item. I'm just moving it to the line items where we need to cover some other expenditures. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Do I have approval for the transfers and increases in budget? Do I have a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Costello. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Nice. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Number 7, board discussion concerning temporary closure of Hayden City High School. I'll start it out by saying with this, and when we get to delegations, that we know that people have opposing viewpoints. Please stay respectful. We want our children, our students, to see that you can have differing opinions, but we don't have to get mean. Okay. So, first thing that I will say, Mrs. Porter had the right legally to call for a temporary closure, not for a final closure. That would have to go through the hearings and all. And where that's based in is a West Virginia Supreme Court ruling in 2022 in Putnam County said that the superintendent has the exclusive authority to close a school temporarily for any hazard or safety reason. The board has nothing to do with that decision, nor can we override her decision. We cannot even vote to say we disagree with it. We don't get a vote because of that West Virginia Supreme Court ruling that she has the exclusive authority. It runs sort of like a snow day. She can call a snow day, we can't, and we can't change it that she called a snow day. Now, I know that's very minimal compared to this, but I'm just trying to explain to you that's why we cannot change the decision that was made. Does anybody else have something they want to discuss or say about the temporary closure?
I'm gonna set that back over there. Yes, Mike Turner talked to me after the April 3rd meeting. He said, "Buddy, you're in a trap." Thanks, Mike. Stating the obvious. But let me speak to it. And let me be honest. And I've never written, you know me, but I had to today. And do I bleed green and white? Yep. Write it down, put it anywhere you want. It's a fact. My dad was raised my siblings and I in that community. If I was raised in a different community, I'd bleed different colors. I bleed green and white because that's where I was raised. My dad was in the first graduating class of Paden City High School. My siblings and I all graduated from Paden City High School. My children all graduated from Paden City High School. I met my wife because she became the band director at Paden City High School in 1994. Bob Burton played matchmaker, and now we've been married for almost 30 years. When we came back to the community in 2011, we quickly entrenched ourselves back into the community of Paden City. In 2014, my wife became the director of bands once again. I have worked alongside of her, volunteering more time than I can count over the span since 2014. I say that with ready admission that I am highly intertwined with Paden City High School. But do I believe I can ask objective questions to this? And the answer is yes. I'd like to believe I'd ask these same questions no matter what school was being temporarily, and as Mrs. Fauner said, yes, it's by the same law that you can close a school for a flood or a snow or whatever, but they aren't apples to apples, and we admit that. So I just wanted to make sure I said that. I admit it. I think also when you have these kinds of discussions, context is important. Twice during the beginning of the past school year that we're just about to finish in a few days, a request was made that the board consider closing Paden City High School and merging it with Magnolia and New Martinsville School. It failed to reach a vote on its first attempt, and on the second time, it was unanimously rejected by the 5-member board that's sitting at this table presently. Now, I say that not to drag up old things, but it's contextual because of that, nobody has any trust because of that. Now, I'm not trying to cast disparaging thought. I'm just saying fact. It's a fact. Because that happened, we're human beings. It's hard to get past the idea that on 2 different occasions, a board was asked to vote for this to what's actually occurred happened. And it makes the conversation about health and safety hard to have. It makes that conversation hard to have because people question, are you really having a question about health and safety, or are you having a conversation about what was tried at the beginning of the school year? And that's hard for people. I mean, that's hard for people to try to have, and quite frankly, I don't know that there's anything I can say tonight that'll knock that barrier down. I think it's a barrier that cannot be overcome as far as what people believe and feel. If there's anything in this world or this work that's taught me in board work, there's things you believe, there's things you know, there's things you can prove, and there's things that's legal. And those four things rarely coincide with each other. And it's hard. It's hard to know how to address these things. And so I say that just for context. But moving forward, after the vote in September, I believe that the merger question was over. I believed that we'd asked and answered it. I believed in my heart it was over, lessons learned. And I, in full disclosure, fully anticipated that we were going to be led down the question of bond initiative. I was fully prepared for that. I was ready to have open discussions about whether our county should have a vote and allow the members of the county to speak as to what they would like as it relates to their schools. It, after all, is theirs. It's our community schools. It belongs to the people that we represent. And so I was ready for that, and I had no problem with that, by the way, having that discussion and allowing for that. But that never materialized in the time that I've been here. But there's more context that I'm afraid in the phone calls I received, a lot of people were unaware of. On April 3rd, a special session was held concerning the Superfund site issue that involved Payton City High School. That meeting quickly became focused on a letter sent by the West Virginia Department of Education that asked 10 questions regarding how the county was handling the situation. 5 of those questions dealt with relocation of students. 5 of the 10 on that letter from the West Virginia Department of Education related to the idea of relocation of students and staff. And the final question of that letter asked whether it would be better to be proactive rather than wait for an ill-timed action if the authority having jurisdiction requires PCHS to be vacated. That's their words, not mine. I stated in that open session that day, and if you want to be sure about it, just go back. April 3rd, look it up on our YouTube channel, April 3rd, that meeting. I said in open session that meeting that I knew where we were headed. I was even asked a question from the audience, and I broke every protocol I believe in and actually reacted. I rarely, if ever, react to things people in the crowd say, but I did that day. And I gave clarity that I believed I knew where the state was heading us and leading us to, and it was this day we're talking about today. And I said it then. And here's where I failed you. From that day forward, I should have asked for a standing agenda item to keep that issue in front of the people. And that's my fault. I'm a better board member than that. And I won't sleep well because of it. I could have done better, and I apologize to my community. You deserved a better transparency, and I could have created that for you. I just wasn't smart enough until after everything to realize what I could have done to help that situation. Though a 7-day window for responses was requested in the original letter from the West Virginia Department of Education, they apparently extended some grace to that timeline concerning this issue. On April the 11th, along with President Fauner, I attended a committee meeting concerning this issue. Our presence at that meeting was approved in open session at the April 3rd meeting, and in attendance among many county office personnel was also Mr. Micah Whitlow, the State Director of Facilities, and Dr. Sonia White, State Deputy Superintendent of Schools. They did not stay through the entire meeting, and for the most part simply reiterated the need to submit a response to the questions they had sent. What struck me the most about Mr. Whitlow's comments that day was the fact that, to his knowledge, West Virginia had never dealt with a school sitting on a Superfund site before. He dealt with mold, he dealt with structural, he dealt with all kinds of things. He had never, in his career and nothing he could think of, ever dealt with a situation like that before. His office typically dealt with other kinds of issues, not Superfund sites. Now, that was what he told me. I'm trying. So, in that meeting, a variety of things were discussed, including who could be contracted to do regular testing, installation of vapor intrusion mitigation, a discussion of what potential relocation would look like, and I will share more about that in my questions in a moment. That meeting recessed around noon, and that is the last time I had any specific opportunity to have any voice in this situation. So the following questions, they're not intended to trap anybody. This is a big deal. This is a big deal. This isn't whether, we're going to serve chocolate or white milk in the cafeterias. This is a big deal. And so I ask these questions legitimately. This is a life-altering event for our students and staff. These questions aren't about history. They're not about nostalgia. They're not about alumni like me who are devastated that our hallowed halls are no longer going to have students walking in them. These questions are about the current students, their families, as well as the current faculty and staff that should have a voice in this. They should have a voice in this matter. With the legal status of Payton City High School set to become temporarily closed on July 1st, it creates a cloud of uncertainty about the future of Payton City High School, regardless of what happens with the Superfund site. That is why the citizens, alumni, but most importantly, the current students, staff, and families deserve to be heard. Some of these questions are mine. Others are concerns that citizens have brought to my attention. And as a representative on this board for 5 more days, it's my responsibility to share them. And I apologize. I took longer than I expected. But here are the questions. You maybe wondered, is he ever going to get to it? Yes, here we go. And again, fair questions, I believe. The opening question is, the situation in Payton City was placed on the national priority list on March 16, 2022. The problem had been known prior to that. Official designation, March 16, 2022. That means the school remained open for the end of the 21-22 school year, as well as the entire school years of 22-23 and 23-24. What information has changed so that now it is unacceptable for them to remain in the building? Is there any information that has changed since that time to today?
I believe that if at that time in the spring of 2022, this should have already happened. So that information is still the same as it was. However, going through the process of temporarily closing a school, as you know, does take some time. And we had to have some legal representation to make sure we did that properly, along with the State Board of Education.
So,
I'm
listen,
sorry,
guys, listen, please. I want you to be able to be here.
This is board discussion time, please. We need to be able to hear.
Yeah. Go ahead, I'm sorry. So
And
has
also, you weren't superintendent in 2022.
I wasn't.
I perfectly.
That is correct.
Yeah, I agree. I understand. So we don't know anything necessarily different today than we knew then. This was just a decision that finally came. I'm just trying to understand clarity.
They are continuing their testing. The EPA is continuing their testing, as we know. We also have environmental specialists that we've been working with, and there is some varying information as to how an environmental specialist may do testing at Payton City High School or a Superfund site versus the EPA. At the end of the day, our number one priority for our staff and students is their health and safety. A risk is not okay for a school system to accept, so we accept 0 risk for our students.
Okay.
Again, this is board discussion time. We need to listen. We are going to listen to delegations, but right now we need to listen to who's speaking here, please.
And I try to be fair with everybody. I've done that always. And quite frankly, the truth is there have been people from Payton City that have reached out to me from both sides of this question. It's just hard for me to get through an acceptable and unacceptable. Putting our students on the roads more is an acceptable risk. towards an unacceptable. You understand what I mean? That's hard. It's hard for me to get my mind around what's acceptable and what's unacceptable. That's why I asked the question if there was something we had learned more about this issue that might help me. Not me. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a health expert. Right? This feels these two of these board members know what it was like at COVID. People are looking to you to make health decisions, and we're completely unqualified to make those kinds of decisions. But that was a question that had been asked, that I was asked to ask, and I also felt it was fair to ask what changed. If the school was fine, it was fine, and then it wasn't fine. If there was some kind of new information, but if I'm understanding it right, it's just a new decision based on the old information.
I believe this decision should have been made
Okay,
at the time of the designation of the National Superfund
I
site.
understand. I got you. Thank you. The possibility of mitigating the potential hazard at school level was suggested in various reports, including vapor intrusion mitigation. Did we ever consult a company that could install commercial-grade vapor intrusion mitigation measures?
We consulted an environmental specialist, and after speaking with him, the cost of mitigation was well exceeding what a school board should be expected to pay. I did confirm that with the state superintendent, who said that burden should not be put on a school system when we have a very easy way to mitigate this risk for our students.
Okay. So,
Please, we will have to ask people to leave if this continues. We need to listen now to them speaking.
so non-cost effective.
That burden should not be put on a school system. Our number one priority is health and safety and education of students. We have a very easy way to take the risk to zero for our students.
Okay. It was suggested that we do regular testing to ensure that air quality remained acceptable according to EPA standards. Did we consult with any firms who would be capable of doing that testing?
We consulted with two environmental specialists, one which we are retaining to help us through this process. Again, if you look at the testing that the EPA has done, they have done it approximately 1 time per year. According to the environmental specialists, that should happen at least 4 times per year in our situation because we live in a climate where we have 4 different seasons. And it also should take into consideration the weather patterns. For us to do that kind of testing at this point is not within our means. And again, we have a very easy solution to take the risk to zero for our students.
Other than the publicly available information concerning the Superfund site, did Wetzel County Schools consult or seek advice from other health professionals? And I know you've mentioned a couple already.
Correct.
And if so, could you share with us the information they provided?
Again, this is an unsafe situation. I want to add this right now. I have a quote that I'm using part of it. It's from Jennifer Homendy. I want to say that on behalf of the school system, I want to recognize the significant impact of this. I do understand that we all need to process this in our own way, and this is not ideal for everyone sitting in our audience. Although some have tried to minimize the wide-reaching effects that this has caused or can cause, the absence of fatality or injury doesn't mean the presence of safety.
And again, I'm just asking, who is that?
She is an environmentalist that reported on several other Superfund sites.
Okay. And that's, she
She
said
gave
it.
the name.
So if moving the students was determined to be the only viable answer, and that's what I'm hearing with all these questions. And I'm just telling you what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is mitigation wasn't going to work, too expensive, state wouldn't prove it, whatever. we kept coming back to this, right? We kept coming back, moving them is the only answer. Moving them is the only answer. So if moving the students was determined to be the only viable answer, was any effort made to find a suitable location within Payton City to relocate students? If so, why weren't any of those options selected?
The State Department would not approve us moving students to any other facility without long-term investigation of the process of making sure that facility was okay. Several people had asked me about churches, about the old middle school down there. When I did ask the state if that was viable, they immediately said it was not because of the time that it would take and the disruption of the educational process. That was not a solution that they were willing to accept from us. We have a very easy solution that is actually currently happening at this time.
And by the way, I concur with you on that. They'd never let that go through on the CEFP. You'd have to amend your comprehensive educational facilities plan, and the state has to approve that. They wouldn't do it. They simply would not allow you to, and you can't just send kids to a building. You have to have state approval. That building's got to be approved by them. It's got to meet all the ADA things. It's got to do all those things. The state has to amend your comprehensive educational facilities plan. And that's just fact. The state just doesn't let you put students wherever you want to put them. But I don't know whether there had been another location or not, but options weren't necessarily, because it seems like the state is insisting we go where we're going.
When we went over the metrics with Mr. Whitlow at our meeting, he gave us a quadrant of how we could handle the situation. And at the end of the day, to reduce the risk to zero for our students, moving them to a suitable location, which would not cause a disruption in education, and we would still be able to transport them and take care of them, that's the option that we went with.
Many 7th and 8th grade parents have asked why they were not relocated to the grade school in Payton City rather than to New Martinsville. Was that considered, and if so, why was that not chosen?
That was considered, but space was an issue.
What is the current capacity percentage at Payton City Elementary School?
You want me to tell you how many students that can fit in that school? I can't give you that answer right off the top of my head. I'm sorry, Mr.
Okay.
Price.
Well, and here's why that's, trust me, I'm not trying to, that's a fair question. If we said, no, we can't take them to Payton City Elementary, we ought to be able to tell people why.
But remember, we also would have a staffing issue with that because 7th and 8th graders do not take courses the same way that our elementary school students do. So 7th and 8th graders actually rotate. So adding enough teachers at Payton City Elementary to have them rotate through their core classes was not feasible.
Even though we had those teachers available to us because anyway, I struggle with that. I'm being honest. I struggle with that because there were teachers sitting in that building doing that work already. I'm not trying to argue. I'm just trying to.
Some of those teachers were also teaching multiple grade levels, not just 7th and 8th.
But this would have, yeah. Okay. Because quite frankly, that would have allowed Payton City to have at least a little dignity in all this. It would have kept no, don't. Because now what we're going to have is we're going to have 6th graders who, if they want to participate in something, are going to have to go to a completely different town. It was one thing for them to participate when they had to go to a different school and 2 blocks up the street, but now a 6th grade student who wants to play basketball is going to have to figure out a way to get from Payton City Elementary clear to the north end of New Martinsville at whatever hours those activities are. I would respectfully ask that we give that a little more consideration. So on the subject of identity, in this temporary status, does Payton City High School still legally exist? I'm asking that. Does Payton City High School still legally exist in temporary status?
Okay, again, and I know you're getting upset with me doing this, but we need to hear what's going on here, and the delegations will have their time. The comments have to stop.
So again, in this temporary status, does Payton City High School still legally exist?
Yes.
Okay. During the committee meeting, I was led to believe that if relocation was the only answer, we could find paths to allow both Magnolia and Payton City to coexist, meaning PC football, volleyball, basketball, band, etc., could coexist with Magnolia. In other words, not combined, they could stay independent and keep identity. I even asked whether there would be enough space in Magnolia to just let us be there. Could there be classroom space? And again, you could tell me that's a logistical nightmare, but we're adults. We do logistical nightmares for kids all the time. But I asked that in that meeting. There was actually one person sitting in that committee meeting that actually entertained the idea that that might be possible, but it got shot down pretty quick. That may be just too difficult, and I get it. But why not? Since that subject was brought up in that committee meeting, why did that idea not materialize to allow, even if this is the only path, this is the only way to keep kids safe, if I concede all that, then what would have been the challenge for us to maintain identity through this temporary point?
So we looked at the logistics of that and the numbers, and trust me, we met numerous times on how this would best work. And we did think about, do we just put them there? Do we have them coexist? Do we have them merge together and exist as a campus together? And at the end of the day, we felt that it was better that we just let them merge into that facility. They are currently practicing football together. They are currently practicing volleyball together at the middle school and the high school level. I have met with faculty. I've actually met with a student from Payton City who asked me about graduation, and there are some very specific things that we are going to be able to do. For example, they will graduate with their green and white cap and gowns. I've talked with Mrs. McPherson, and we are working with the State Department to make sure that their documents say Payton City High School. So we are doing our best to let them keep that identity that way. However, by letting them go ahead and merge, they will be taking courses together. There's no way that we could separate the course load between the two schools. So this way, all students will have access to all curriculum. Some students at Payton City did not have access to the curriculum that we offered at Magnolia and vice versa. So this way, all students will have access to all of that curriculum. We felt that that would be our best option. And like I said, they are currently practicing together. I've actually had, believe it or not, lots of support and asking the parents to be kind and help us make this transition. I have had parents reach out and say that my students have been practicing volleyball at New Martinsville School, and they just jumped right in there and played with the other kids. Our kids have ridden buses together all year because of busing situations. We've taken track teams and other teams together on buses. Our theater program is actually for a while now has coexisted as one company with the kids from Magnolia and the kids from Payton City. So we felt it less stressful on the students to not just let them experience everything together.
I appreciate the fact that with some of this that would be difficult to do. But there is a difference between saying, well, I can offer them all of these math courses, or they can go to that in second period. But I'm still baffled as to why we didn't move mountains to allow. And by the way, you're absolutely right. The grown-ups and the students are doing the best they can with the circumstance that's been laid before them. They don't have a lot of choice in the matter right now. But I think if you ask them, and probably if you ask Magnolia students, they would probably kind of like to be Magnolia, and I wouldn't blame them. They've been very gracious, very kind. Staff's been the same way in many instances. But I promise you, unless my sample set is wrong. The students I've talked to would jump at the idea of being able to stay as Payton City High School and compete and do the things they've done as Payton City High School. And quite frankly, and again, that's what I thought we were going to try to do when we left that committee meeting. And I don't understand. No one has ever told me differently since April the 11th. I've never heard anything different than that. And then all of a sudden, I'm in Florida, and phone starts going off on Tuesday night, and then by Wednesday, we're getting messages that this directive was coming down to cease all things Payton City. And that floored me, because I thought that if relocation was the only viable, the only thing the state would allow, all those descriptors we want to place upon it, I was under the understanding that we would move mountains to allow for logistical things to take place, and I was disappointed. And quite frankly, and I don't know, and I know my agenda item didn't get accepted in the manner that I sent it. I asked for action, and here's one of the reasons why. I told you I needed time. I didn't have time to be able to analyze everything, especially when the agenda came out 2 days earlier than it normally does. State Code 18.2-25, Part A. The county boards of education shall exercise the control, supervision, and regulation of all interscholastic athletic events and other extracurricular activities of the students in public secondary schools and of those schools of their respective counties. The County Board of Education may delegate control, supervision, and regulation of interscholastic athletic events and band activities to the West Virginia Secondary School Activities Commission. We had a say in that. And I'm not trying to be harsh here. This board had a legal right to have a say in that, according to the law. But because I couldn't get the word action on the agenda, I can't do anything about it tonight, except tell you and tell this board, with all due respect, I believe our superintendent had the right to do what she did as it relates to temporary closure. It's in the statute. I don't judge anybody's motives as about safety and health and those kinds of things. People can disagree on that. But this is a matter we could have done something about. But the board was never asked what we thought the past should be about extracurricular activities, which really is the identity of a school. I don't get to come in with pom-poms at the math test. You know, I might like to, and I might want better academics, and that's the vital focus of education. But this is where folks get their identity from. And I'm just disappointed that at least I feel like the board was not included in that conversation. And again, that's not a judgment of anybody's motives. It's just we should have been engaged in that. We're the arm of the community. The board isn't an extra arm to the board office. The County Board of Education is the arm that reaches out to the community. And we would have been much more in tune with what the community would like to see us try to accomplish, even in this difficult setting. And I feel like that we weren't given that opportunity. And anyway, and there's not a thing I can do about it tonight.
One comment, and it's very minor. When you mentioned the agenda came out 2 days earlier, that was because of Juneteenth and
Yeah, it was holidays.
Was it due date?
Yeah,
It was
absolutely. It was
holidays. That's why
legitimate
it had to
reasons.
come out
I
early.
apologize. I should have stated that. Although there is one thing, and that is simply this. I could ask you to reverse that decision in that directive, and the board could ask you to do it. We can't vote to do it, and we can't legally constrain you to do it tonight, but we can voice our opinion if the board so chooses about that. this evening. I got one last question. I promise I'll be quiet. And this is a question that came to me kind of late in the process. Why were summer school offerings that were intended for Payton City High School moved to Magnolia rather than Payton City Elementary? What are the transportation plans for current summer programs that would have been held in Payton City? Things like credit recovery, summer school, those kinds of things. And maybe even speak to some of the transportation issues moving forward if we're going to be sending students all the time to New Martinsville.
Are some of those able to be held at Payton City Elementary?
When I spoke with Ms. Shipman and Mrs. Miller, the principals of the two high schools that will be combining, they decided to go ahead and hold it at Magnolia. Now, I know for a fact that Mrs. Miller has gone to pick up students to make sure that they got to credit recovery. If there was an issue, all they had to do was ask. It could have also been held at the elementary school, but the decision was made that it'd be best to hold all of them together, credit recovery at the high school.
So
As
if
far
there
as
is someone from Payton City that needs credit recovery, we will
Absolutely.
get them to Magnolia.
Absolutely. And as far as talking about sporting events and how we're going to get kids there, we have been in discussion with Mrs. Loy and running an activities bus after school to make sure we can get the kids home from Magnolia to Payton City. We've also been in discussions with making sure the 6th graders and the 7th and 8th graders have access and transportation to New Martinsville School for their activities as well. So we are working on transportation as we speak. But again, Mrs. Miller, graciously, thank you very much. She's sitting with here tonight, has taken it upon herself to make sure that she can get those kids to and from credit recovery as needed.
Thank you. Board members, that's all I have at this time. Any other?
No, you made some very good points. I appreciate you. You can keep the gift. It wasn't,
know.
you know,
I'm just
you had to
teasing.
speak out. Does anybody else have a comment tonight that they want to make?
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Yep.
It's not much, but there was a lot of
Get
phone
your
calls.
voice closer.
There was a lot of phone calls, a lot of messages, a lot of emails. I didn't have the answers for everyone. I knew there was things that I couldn't say or could say, and I apologize for not being at least calling back everybody. It was a lot to try to keep up with, and I should have done better, and I just want to apologize about that. Mr. Price here has a lot of knowledge, experience with this, where I can only soak up so much with my short time with him this year, but I have a long way to go, and I just hope you guys can still work with me going forward.
Anyone else? Mr. Glasgow?
I had a lot of phone calls. I answered every phone call. I was in Tennessee for a whole week, and I answered the phone calls. I stand with you. Mrs. Porter, anybody at this table, do you know how many kids is at the elementary school? You said you didn't. Does anybody else here at this table have? No? Surely somebody knows how many people, how many children we have at the elementary school.
I don't have the attendance numbers with me. I mean, if I had known this was going to be brought up, I could have brought them.
There'd be about 180, Mr. Glasgow.
180.
I know that we all think that that's very easy to do, is just put 7th and 8th grade there, but it's a little more complicated than that, just putting them there. They don't just have one teacher all day.
So there's 180 kids at the elementary school. What is the capacity that school will handle?
Again, I talked with Mrs. Chambers about the availability to put 7th and 8th graders at that school and enough teachers to put at that school. If you recall, last year, we were unable to staff Payton City High School completely. We had to use uncertified subs in some areas. It wasn't going to logistically work for us to put the 7th and 8th graders there. I'm sorry.
Why wasn't Valley High School included in moving the kids?
Valley High School is included. It is on Facebook that if there are any students that would like to attend Valley High School, they are having an open house, and you may go out there and meet Mrs. Beckett and their guidance counselor, Mrs. Mace. That is an option. Another option that I've talked with several people are some of our kids want to go to the tech center. They can go to the tech center for half a day. If they're a senior, they can actually go to the tech center for half a day, and then if they're caught up on their credits and they are not behind at all, they could stay all day. That's an option for seniors only. But we do have many options that we have navigated through. If anyone in the audience or anyone listening to this broadcast has a specific option that they would like to talk it over with me, please feel free to call, and I will do so with you. Again, if you are a junior or a senior, if you're a senior, you can go to the tech center in a programmatic study, a career tech study, for half a day, if there's room in that program, or if you're already in that program, that's fantastic as well. If you would like to stay through lunch, there will be a mini cafeteria at the tech center. You can then take your civics, your math, and your English there as well, so that's an option. And again, if you'd like to attend Valley High School, there is going to be an open house, so we want to make sure that there are lots of different options for our children at this time. Again, I know this is difficult, and I know this is not the answer that you want to hear, but at this time, this is the direction we're heading. Thank you.
Do you have anything?
Now, when you say temporary, exactly what do you consider temporary?
I can't answer temporary.
All right, at this time, I was informed, because I went to training this week, that if things get carried away, we can end the meeting. I don't want to do that. Please, please, let's try to keep it under control. We're going to listen to you, I promise. Okay. Anybody else have discussion from the board?
I'd like to make a motion. I would motion that we table any continued discussion of the temporary closure of Payton City High School to after delegations. That would allow, if there is a question from the delegations that we did not ask yet, that would give us the legal right to ask that.
Okay, so it's been moved by Mr. Price and seconded by Mr. Glasscock that we table this discussion until after the delegations have finished. Is there any discussion? Okay, so we've had a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries to table this until after the delegations. Okay, number 8, board member committee reports. Nothing? Okay, none? You have a MOVTI meeting tomorrow? Okay, Thursday. Okay, under other items, discussion, policy 2322, West Virginia support and accountability, school performance, student outcomes, academics, and student achievement. Mrs. McLaughlin and Mrs. Walton.
I know we have a lot of voices to be heard tonight, so if you would just give us a few minutes of your time, because we have a lot of wonderful things to share. President Fauner, board members, Superintendent Porter, and fellow directors, thank you for letting us celebrate the great things that are happening at New Martinsville School and what additional targeted support has focused on thus far. I think you will see the leadership and student growth moving in a very positive direction. Tonight, Mrs. Walton and I will share where we are with ATS and what is left for this process at New Martinsville School. You will see that NMS is data-rich and on the right track with curriculum, interventions, tracking behavior, and ongoing family engagement. The goals that were set have proven and supported student success and the district's strategic planning. Our staff are also to be commended for the consistency and dedication that have shown throughout this process. So tonight we're going to have a little showcase of arts on additional targeted support. You may have heard us talk about the ATS process throughout the year, so this is where we are. So just a review of why ATS. So ATS is focused on the subgroup for special education. Test scores were reviewed for New Martinsville School, and that includes the students that are on individual education plans. We had 3 years of low proficiency in ELA and math. So here's just a timeline of those proficient test scores. In 2020 and 21 and 21, 22, we were only proficient 1% in ELA and 3% in math. In 2022 and 2023, we saw a bit of an increase with 6% ELA and 13% in math. So that's where we were declared ATS. In 2022 and 23 of October, the data reviewed from the state warranted a need for recommendations. In May, the recommendations were received from the state.
Pictured on this slide are the results from the GSA. You will notice on the left 2 scores are actually 2 of the 3 that actually landed New Martinsville School as an ETS school. And again, I want to reiterate, this was special ed scores only. And also noted, 22, 23 was my first year at New Martinsville School.
So once we received the recommendations from the state, we began the process. And whenever the year 2 began, which was this year, this was my first year as your special education director, we were given directives from the state that we had to pick a school-level ATS team. So I'll let Mrs. Walton introduce her magnificent team.
Along with the directive to appoint a team, there were also requirements of who had to be on the team. So there was myself, both assistant principals, Ms. Mary Young and Mrs. Linda Zay, Emily McGuire, a special education teacher, and Jeannie Kane, a 4th grade teacher.
So moving forward, our next steps after we had come up with the team, we had to set 3 goals. So we were given a whole list of recommendations from the state, and the 3 goals that we wrote were centered around improving writing, increasing co-teaching initiatives, and targeting our bubble students to improve interventions. So after those 3 goals were written, we then went on to some action items at the school level.
These were items that were developed by the team themselves, as well as with recommendations from the State Department. And please keep in mind, this is not a comprehensive list, but this is where we put most of our energy to improve our scores. We had the SRAB, which is a self-regulated writing strategy that we implemented school-wide. We had several co-teaching trainings for staff. We had an SRAB coach classroom coach. This person came into the classrooms, and they provided immediate feedback for what they saw in the classrooms with students and the teachers. We had PLCs offered at New Martinsville School for the first semester just with our staff. until Ms. McLaughlin came in and she took over a county PLC with special education. Part of her plan was also to get a math interventionist, which I fully believe that she has made a tremendous amount of progress with our students. We also come up with a virtual co-teacher for our 6th grade classrooms, which this was a little out of the box, first year for this and the first time for the state, I believe, right? Which went really well. It was a learning process, but it did go well with our students and our staff. We have regular data meetings where we look and review our data and then decide what interventions and where we need to go from using that data.
So this year, as part of year 2, we had to go through 2 visits. One of those visits was in person, and one of those visits was a Teams call. I will tell you, just thinking back in November when we got the first in-person meeting, there was a lot of uncertainty. There was a lot of nervous teachers and staff. But one of the things that we encouraged them to do was to just be yourselves. Don't put on a song and dance show. The state's going to come in and see the amazing things that you are doing, and that's exactly what happened. I wanted to highlight just some of the things that after the visit, the state had a conversation with the school level team and myself, and some of the things that they said that they noticed and throughout the visit was that the staff and student interviews all aligned. So they picked random staff members to interview, they picked random students to interview, and all of the questions that they asked the staff and all of the questions that they asked the students all matched. So it wasn't a song and dance show. There was caring teachers and a safe environment. There were great interactions with students, and it was a positive climate and culture. On the Teams visit, we had that later in the spring. We got minimal on the in-person visit, just to follow up with that a little bit more too. We got minimal suggestions. They had given us very positive comments from the feedback and loved the things that they saw that was happening. On our Teams visit, our school level team celebrated the growth that was made in ELA and math. So that was a lot of the shared data that we had gotten from our benchmarks in iReady that showed the true growth that the students had made. NMS did a full overview of the amazing growth, and on that call, I was just kind of off to the side, and the teachers and Mrs. Walton did the bulk of the work with the presentation. And I will tell you, I was a bit emotional. The teachers had shared just this awesome growth in ELA and math, and some of the great things that they have that they're looking forward to, and it was just a true celebration of their hard work and dedication.
This slide shows this year's data for the iReady benchmark. You can see that in the blue is the first window. The yellow is the last window that we took in May. You'll see that the first column to the left shows the proficiency percentage, and I apologize that it's so small there, but hopefully you can go along with me. As you can see, there was substantial growth in both areas. The reading, I believe, is on the left, and the math is on the right. So the proficiency, you're going to see the yellow, you want that to go up because it's the percentage of students being proficient and on grade level did almost double, and then in the case of the math, it did more than double. The next two areas, you would want to see those columns decrease. The middle column indicates the percentage of students that are about 1 year below grade level. Both areas here show a large amount of growth as well. And finally, the column to the right is the at-risk percentage. These are the students that are in high need of intervention and are in most cases more than 2 grades below grade level. Again, this is an area where we would want to see those columns decrease. And you can see that we've made substantial growth in all of those across the board.
So now we're on to year 3, which we believe is going to be our final year. And, you know, as a result of our visits and the feedback that we've gotten from the states, our results indicated sufficient progress. We will continue the expectations for growth as our multi-tiered system of support is deepened. With interventions and curriculum. We have, just this morning, we had a very, very wonderful meeting with HMH, and I truly feel that the teachers are going to welcome some of the things that is coming our way with curriculum. Also, one of the things that's going to happen in August is our school level team has to attend a training on ATS, and during that time, they will set another goal for this final year, and that will be focused and centered around PBIS. So Mrs. Walton and her team will be setting a PBIS goal together.
Some of the things that we've had recently and where we're going, we've attended a PBIS conference in Charleston this month. Also an attendance conference in May, which I feel was very beneficial. We were able to collaborate and come up with a new campaign for the school and establish some PBIS initiatives that revolve around attendance, and some of them include a magnet tracker for guardians at home, as well as attendance rewards each 9 weeks with special events. That is something that we did all throughout this year and found it to be the most benefit for our attendance percentage. Also earlier you met Molly, our therapy dog. She will continue to support our students and staff next year. We will continue reading and math interventions and all the interventions that we have in place for the students currently. Tomorrow we have MTSS training. When we started this venture, New Martinsville School did not have any students in a co-teaching environment. We were all in a small group, so that was one of the things that we wanted to target and hit hard. We felt that was where we were going to get the biggest bang for our buck. That has went extremely well. And wouldn't you say that contributed to a lot of our benefit? The teachers have buy-in now, so we feel like we can move forward in a steady speed. We are hoping to be fully staffed for the upcoming year, and we still have a few open positions. So if anybody would like to bid and work at New Martinsville School with us, please feel free to do so.
And, you know, just to wrap up, the proof is in the pudding. The data's there. It's really helped with a lot of the buy-in with the teachers, like Mrs. Walton said, with co-teaching. That's not an easy strategy. You have to have 2 teachers that are willing and ready to take on that venture. You know, they went to trainings with an open mind, and I think that our data is moving in the right direction. And with all of the new and great things that are coming, I'm excited to see the kids and staff, just what's to come for them. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that we're listening to some things on progress and data and students, and it's going well. I think that when we do that at a school, we need to be sharing it with the other schools. And I do want to throw one plug in for the co-teaching. Mrs. West is back there, and she and I did that when we were teaching, and we found it to be a very good thing to do. All right, next on here is, are there any other things under the county people? No, nobody else. Okay. Then we're down to the delegations. Let me remind you of how we're going to run the delegations. Again, remaining respectful. You have 5 minutes to talk. There is, I'm sorry.
Put this mic out there for them,
Okay, thank you.
if I can get it on.
You do have 5 minutes, and there is a clock right over there under the screen, so when you're talking, you can glance over there to see how close you're getting to your 5-minute times. Please present to the board, not to the audience. I know this one's hard, but do not get personal. say how you feel, don't get me wrong, say how you feel, but don't start putting somebody or something down or mean. We're supposed to stay objective with listening to what you're saying, so please don't go personal. And the board is not liable for anything that you say. If you would say something that was, whether there was some slander or anything like that, we are not responsible for that. You are solely responsible for that. So at this time, we will start with the delegations. I do need to make one change on the ones listed on the agenda. We'll start with Margaret Sine, then Bill Bell. Elliot Kendall is not able to be here after all today, so he will not be speaking. So we'll start with Margaret Sine, Bill Bell, and Mike Turner, and then I'll go to those that signed in today. Okay, so Margaret Sine, come on up. There you go.
Well, I have to say that I got a postcard in the mail the other day. It said, "We want to hear from you." And it really did kind of relieve some of my anxiety about speaking out tonight.
Almost touching it.
Okay. To the board members, the administrative staff, I've been employed by or associated with Wetzel County Schools for many, many, many years, more than half my life. I have friends that in every single school that's a part of this temporary predicament. I have friends right here. I have friends at both ends of the tables. I've attended numerous Board of Education meetings. I haven't always agreed with the decisions that were made, but on those occasions, I have discussed it with my supervisors in private, or I have griped about it with my colleagues, and I won't ask you to raise your hands. Those of you who have known me for a long time will have to admit I've never spoken out publicly against a board decision or criticizing a board decision. This time, I can't stay quiet. Tonight, you're going to be presented with a lot of documented evidence and technical terms and scientific terms that I can't pronounce and don't even pretend to understand, but I'm just here to give an opinion. The issue I wish to discuss is the manner and the timing of the announcement of the school closing. I believe it was cruel, I believe it was contrived, and frankly, I believe it was cowardly. There's no doubt that the decision to close the school was made weeks before June 11th, if not months, because after all, collaborating with the State Department and legal counsel certainly doesn't happen overnight. Everyone who attended that board meeting at Magnolia last September, that Brian referenced, was well aware of the passion that the students and the staff and the community have for Payton City High School. And yet, the powers that be decided to wait until school was completely closed for the summer, and they hit the send button and announced the devastating news. They denied the school the opportunity to conduct a farewell assembly, to hold hands and sing their alma mater, to clap hands and sing their school song, to hug their classmates, to thank their teachers, to recognize their high achievers and their athletes. They denied the award-winning, widely respected Payton City High School band one last opportunity to perform for their adoring fans. It was as if the people from Payton City High School were erased. We're asked to believe that this difficult decision was based upon a sincere desire to protect those individuals who spend their days and evenings at Payton City High School, that the major concern was for their health and safety. However, no consideration was given to the mental health of those individuals. If you have any contact with our counselors and our social workers, you have to know that mental health issues are at record highs for adolescents. A standard school response or for students who have experienced grief and loss would be to bring in extra counselors to help them deal with their pain. These students didn't even have access to their own counselor. They couldn't get into their school. As a former school administrator, I'm well aware of the fact that difficult, unpopular decisions have to be made from time to time, and that sharing such information with students, staff, and parents can present some challenges. I would surely hope that from this day forward, any Wetzel County Schools employee who is asked to deliver heartbreaking news to anyone that he or she would be cognizant of and expected to adhere to the standard that is outlined in Wetzel County Schools Policy GBCA, Employee Code of Conduct, which states, among other things, that all board employees shall create a culture of caring through understanding and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Song. Next delegation is Mr. Bill Bell.
Good evening, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening, and forgive me that on my phone. In teaching history and American government, among other subjects as of late, in Wetzel County, I have told students there are moments when they will always know where they were, what they were doing, and how they felt on the onset of a monumental event. One moment that will stand out to the community that I am proud to represent happened at 6:07 p.m. on June 11th, 2024. I was sitting in my house trying to wind down after one of the most challenging school years I've ever been a part of. Suddenly, we get an email from a no-reply email address informing us that our school was going to be temporarily relocated after a, quote, environmental hazard such as Superfund site. To say that I am disappointed in the method this news was announced is the understatement of the year. One would think that with a potential school closure, that the county administration would have the decency to meet with the affected staff, or would at least hear the news from our building principal instead of a mass email sent exactly 2 minutes after it was publicly announced at a board meeting or a Facebook post. More importantly, one would think that the families and students would have been notified in a more respectful and meaningful fashion. My phone blew up the remainder of the evening taking calls and texts from concerned residents who trusted their councilman more than they trusted their school and county administration. I'm going to concede much of my time out of respect for the citizens that have come to talk to you this evening. You are going to hear more about how the Environmental Protection Agency stated that the school property and adjacent sites, including my personal residence that is immediately adjacent to the site, were safe after being tested on 3 separate occasions. You will hear from betrayed members of our community who expected better from their school system that they pay their taxes toward and vote on levies for. Most importantly, you are going to hear from the ones you hurt the most, our students and families. I hope you pay attention to every word that is said this evening. I hope that you can look these citizens in the eye and give them the common decency and respect they deserve. To be frank, I have lost trust, faith, and confidence in this county's administration over the handling of this matter, among others. And I hope and pray that you can find a way to rebuild it. And let me be clear, I have taken to appreciate and respect every student that has come in my classroom over the last 5 years I have been in Wetzel County. They may be annoyed by me some days, right? Or their families might even actively hate me, but I am still forever grateful that I've had the opportunity to teach every single one of them. They are the sole reason I'm here tonight. On behalf of the community I represent, I implore you, do better. Go Cats!
Our next delegation is Mike Turner.
I'm here to talk about the risk that we're putting Payton City High School students in by moving them from Payton City to New Martinsville High School. I've heard zero risk
tonight, that term. What's the probability of zero risk? Are you aware that newborn babies are dropped in the hospital at birth? There's risk there. There's risk in being born. We have to accept risk. As you're aware, on the 16th of March in 22, Hayden City High School area was put on the Superfund site. In January 31st, 2024, there's a toxicology report that came out, and it says residents are unlikely to experience harmful health effects from the contaminants sampled in the drinking water. Conclusion 2, the locations where air sampling has occurred, residents are unlikely to experience harmful health effects due to exposures. Well, from 22 to 24, the Wetzel County Board of Education had not taken any emergency action to move students out of Hayden City High School due to the exposure risk. This action caused the citizens to think the Wetzel County Board of Education was supporting the EPA and the Department of Health and Human Services risk standards as the standard that would be acceptable. My concern is this. We're moving the kids to the New Martinsville High School. Let's look at chemical exposure. Over 100 years, the railroad's been beside the high school. During these years, most of the time, the railroad ties have been soaked with creosote. The rain would have came, the snow would have came, the flood came, and the creosote would have sunk into the ground. And just like the plume in Hayden City, most likely there's a plume under New Martinsville High School. The city right now, the New Martinsville City, is asking the EPA to declare Bruce Park as a brownfield project indicating chemical contamination. That's only a few more feet from the railroad. If there's a derailment, that railroad runs 30 foot from the high school. If the car derails off the railroad and hits the building, most likely it will collapse. The kids at Hayden City are not exposed to that. They don't have those exposures. They have the EPA there that says, we keep sampling, but are you sampling for creosote, coal tar? Is that happening? I don't think so. There's also a water problem that's been seen in New Martinsville. A recent study conducted by the Environmental Working Group found New Martinsville tap water had the second highest level of PFAS in the country, measuring 40 parts per trillion. The standard would be about 5 parts per trillion. I think the action they've taken is shutting down a well. That's the same action that Hayden City took. So after so many more years, that plume will continue on until something else will have to be done. Are you aware of what the sample results are of the water in New Martinsville? The risks are far greater for the students to be moved to that high school than they are to stay where they're at, because the sampling continues. These risks should be mitigated and communicated to the citizens of Hayden City prior to moving the students to the New Martinsville High School. Please stop this temporary movement. We understand you've been advised not to answer questions, but citizens deserve answers. I'm giving you questions to answer. Please return them to me.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Our next delegation is Jennifer Morris. It's okay.
Hello. I just wanted to speak on the mental welfare of the children of Payton City. My children's first year at Payton City High School was this past year. The closure has affected and will continue to negatively affect my children along with many others. My children do not feel safe at their old school. My daughter, who will be a senior this year, told me she didn't know a school could feel like a family. And for my daughter to say that, that says a lot. At her previous school, it was a daily struggle. She has selective mutism and needed anxiety medication to cope. She no longer needs that anxiety medication. She is coping very well, and she is flourishing. My son will be a sophomore. He is on the spectrum. He now participates in class and has joined theater and the thespians. Before Payton City, that would never have happened. I know many other kids who will be displaced and not be in the environment they need for their safety and mental well-being. Would it be possible for parents, staff, and students to sign a waiver stating we are aware of the minimal risks? I would ask you to please hear the pleas of the town, staff, parents, and students of Payton City and reverse your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. The next delegation, Abby Tennant.
He's going to grab the microphone for me. I have a bit of a disability.
Oh, no, that's fine. No, sure. Sure, no problem.
Thank you very much.
Just pull straight up on it, sir. Real hard, it won't break.
Can we bring that podium over in front of the door? Can we do that?
I'll do a Susie number.
Hi, my name is Abby Tennant. I've been a resident, my family and I, of Payton City for the last year and a half. We chose to move to Payton City because we live on a Superfund site for fracking. We had to move out of the area because the toxins were making us extremely sick. So we chose to move to Payton City. We knew about the water situation. We also knew that that had been dealt with the filters that were brought in. Now, my question to you, Ms. Porter, if you'd please pay attention to me, I'd appreciate that.
Just taking notes.
Have you received any new data from the EPA, DEP, ATSDR, any other environmental institution to support your decision to close down Payton City High School?
I don't respond to delegations. We're not allowed to. I can,
That's
I'll put
correct.
that in my
It's
notes.
So I
correct. We're
can't
not
ask a
allowed to.
question?
Now, let's listen. That's why we're going to have the board discussion again afterwards, because we are not allowed to respond to
Okay,
delegations.
then my understanding is recently a letter from the EPA was sent out, it was on Facebook, stating that there are no health and safety issues for Payton City or the school of Payton City High School. Now, you had mentioned earlier in your discussions that you had had outside environmental testing done. We'd like for you to make those public so that we could see those. As residents of the city, that includes our health and safety as well. The plume does move. So it is not currently under Payton City High School. It could be anywhere in that city. It could be under the house I'm living in right now. Are you going to move me out of my town? I think that you need to consider what everybody here has to say tonight. This is their hometown. I am now part of it. My daughter is now a part of it. That school is absolutely wonderful. I have taught in Wetzel Valley or Wetzel County high schools and grade schools, and they're wonderful schools. But Payton City, by all means, is the best that I've ever had any of my kids in and attended. I'm sorry that Jens can't answer our questions. I really had some questions that I would have liked to have had answered tonight. Thank you for your time.
And thank you. Thank you. Okay, our next delegation is Pat Stillwagner.
Well, you all know me. Some of you hate me, some of you love me. That's fine. It's not about me. It's about the kids. It's about the town. It's about where we all live and where we all love our city and our town and our school.
Mr. Stillwagner, they're not hearing you well. If you could pull that closer. Thank you.
Can you hear me now? I got a big mouth. I can talk without it. Can you get it working? Got it? Got it? Okay. I'm going to read some scripture to you. I'm a preacher. And I've had a lot of people call me since this all happened. A lot of kids crying, didn't know what to tell them. And I turned to God. And God's word always oversees everything else. I'm going to read to you from 2 Timothy, the 3rd chapter. And I want to have your attention while I'm reading. But know this, that in the last days perilous times will come. For men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. And from such people, turn away. In verse 13, it goes to say, but evil men and impostors will grow worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. Tonight, I can't say what I'd like to say, but I'm so disappointed. I'm so disappointed in the cowardly way that this was handled to the people of the town and to our school and to our staff. Cowards. It's disgusting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stillwagner. Next delegation, Linda Stillwagner.
I think I better get this down. Okay, is that right?
That's good, thank you.
Okay. You know, I ran for the school board, and one of my main concerns was a lack of transparency, honor, and openness And I have really learned that this is true. This was all done, and I'm like, Margaret, it's been planned. I didn't know how bad it really was. I am 80 years old. People say I don't act like it, but I am. And I have never in my whole life seen anything done so deceivingly, dishonestly, and devious. No one was warned. Not the staff, not the students. And you know something? Someone else mentioned this. Absolutely nothing been done to give our students support emotionally. We have students that may drop out of school. Did you guys realize that? I know of a couple right now that said they'd probably get their GED. Does that bother you? It should. No support to anyone has ever been offered. Okay. I think it should be done. You know, I hope that you realize this decisions that you have made will affect these kids for life, some of them. I hope they don't turn to drugs. I hope they don't become depressed and turn to suicide. We have had in neighboring schools many, many suicides and attempts. The depression is one of the worst things that kids can go through. Our drug problem around here is horrible. We have to keep this in mind. You know, I don't know. I have talked to kids. I know our grandson graduated and is out of school now. He graduated this year, but we still talk to the kids, and they are devastated. Totally, completely devastated. You know, they had a show of hands at the meeting at the park. There was probably, I don't know if there was 400 people there or not, but they were asked, are you worried about the safety of our kids in this school? And not one person raised their hand, not one. We live there. Do you think taking these kids for 8 hours to some other place is going to keep them safe? And then, like Mike said, what about the stuff in New Martinsville? Maybe we're taking them someplace that's not as safe as down there. And another thing, can you guarantee any safety, 100% safety? Nobody can do that. That's ridiculous. Every time you get in a car, you take risks. Right? Just think about that. We live in PC. And I challenge the board to take control and find out how to open Payton City High School and keep it so that we can know that our kids are safe. Thank you.
Next delegation, Zoa Postlewaite. Oh, there she is.
Can you hear me? It's good? Okay. My name is Zoa Postwaite. I've never, ever in my life spoken at a board meeting. So this is my first time, and I am a little nervous. But I just want to say, I believe the school has a job to keep the kids safe. I believe in that method, that you're right about it, but I think the EPA has a job too, and I think their opinion matters. So I don't think we should be overriding the EPA that controls, everybody nationally. So the next thing I'd like to say is, what are we going to do about the parents that don't drive? We have several parents in our town that don't drive. They can walk over to the school to watch their kids. It's kind of nice. We give them little rides home in the rain and stuff. We don't have to worry about that. We can get them. It's not a problem. What are they going to do now? Are you going to have an activities bus for them too? Because they can't get there. Will our children have counseling in this? I believe the mental health was a good point, a real good point. Are they going to have any counseling? Because up to date, they've had none, and they're crying, and they're hurt, and they're scared, and they don't know what to do, and quite frankly, they don't know where they belong. They need help right now. If anything, do that now. Open up somewhere in a church, give them some counseling. Let them talk. This was thrown at our kids, and my kid personally looked at me, my little Jenna, a lot of you know her, she looked at me and said, am I losing everyone? What do you mean, half my kids are going to Tyler and the other half are now going to New Martinsville, and I have to try out for a team? Am I going to be able to play the sport I want to play? What do I do if I don't make it now? Now she just doesn't know where she belongs. So she's just trying to figure it out. The other thing is, do you know your current PCE levels in your water that's listed on the EPA site? Because you have it in your water. Our current levels in Payton City are 0.64 parts per billion. Yours currently listed are 1.02 in your water, and you're drinking it. Have you had your ground tested yet to know what yours is? We got ours. We know ours, and you know ours. So do you know yours? Because right now, you're serving water out of water fountains that's higher than our water. It's just not safe. So what makes your levels any better is what I'm asking. Have you ever been part of anything bigger? Imagine going to church on Sunday as adults. It's something bigger for us like school church. Imagine going to church on Sunday and they tell you the doors are locked, you can go find a new church now. And you all scatter and you go to new churches, and the people you like to sit by and you worship with and you grow your faith with, they're gone. They're gone now. It's faith shaking. You don't trust it anymore. And you're going to go, and then you're going to wonder, are those people going to be there? Are you still going to be there to worship with them? Well, at school, that's the school for these kids. They go there. They expect each other every day. It's like church for them, right? So you guys know, most of you know, I'm a Magnolia graduate. I'm blue and gold. Magnolia Blue Eagles all the way. Never missed a football game. Loved it. When I grew up, I moved to Payton City because we opened a business down there. My parents did, so I moved. Mr. Castello, you're my history teacher, one of the coolest teachers down to earth I'd ever had. You never made me nervous, and I could speak in your class. Mrs. Fauner, I don't know if you remember the day I was being bullied in school, and I went to you, and you hugged me. And I never forgot you hugging me. You made me feel safe and that I could go to you. And that's what we do at Payton City. I work at Payton City Elementary. If they look for me when I'm not there and I come in, this kid's, Miss Zoe, because I went to the dentist the first part of the day. They're looking for me. Now, who is my kid going to look for when she goes up there? She has extreme panic disorder. Extreme. Who's she looking for now? Because I have to give teachers permission to hug my child. She doesn't want to hug a stranger. Nobody wants to do that. That's just not okay. I'm asking that you stop now and think about things. You're displacing our students. You're putting them in a place where they just don't feel safe. Ms. Porter, please. It's a lot to them. I don't know what they're going to do without their family, and I don't think you lay down at night and rest easy at all. I don't think that. I think that you've shed tears over this, and I think that you've thought about it. I just hope that when you lay down tonight, this is my family. This is our church. That's what we do. And Ms. Porter, we need you here. Our faith is in you. You're leading our church. And our faith is in you, and we don't want our faith shaken, Ms. Porter. So thank you all for listening, and I just hope you overturn this decision.
Thank you, Zoe. Amanda Robinson.
Superintendent and board members, my name is Amanda Robinson. I am a single mother of 3 kids. I work full-time I have my son Isaiah, who goes to Payton City High School. I have a 7-year-old daughter and an almost 2-year-old son. I transferred Isaiah from another school at the beginning of March 2024. At his old school, he was failing all major classes for 2 semesters. I was in contact multiple times with his guidance counselor with no results of getting these classes made up until summer school. He was constantly being bullied, not only by students, but staff as well. He was being bullied for the way he dressed, the way he acted, the way he was, and even the color of his skin. Yes, in 2024, he was being bullied for the color of his skin. He would beg me every morning not to send him to school. He begged me to transfer him out of there or do something. So after a lot of praying and hoping for the best, I made the decision to transfer him to Payton City High School. As a mom, I was so worried about him making new friends, even though he is very outgoing. I was worried if he would have to go through what we went through at his old school. I had to completely change my whole morning routine, afternoon routine, just to get him to and from school every day. But I instantly, and I mean instantly within the first couple of days, seen a huge difference in my son. Every afternoon I would pick him up after work. I would ask him how his day was, and he would say, amazing. Amazing. I would look at him confused because I've never heard those words come out of his mouth about school, ever. Come spring break, Wetzel County had a whole week off. He was asking me in the middle of the week when he would be going back to school because he wanted to actually be there. He wanted to be around the new friends. He was welcomed with open arms at Payton City High School. Every student and every staff has made him feel as if he had been going to school with them for years and years. He joined the track team, which he had been a part of at his old school, but Payton City's coaches made him feel included, made him feel a part of the team instantly. He got recognized. Soon, the football, the basketball, the baseball coaches were all wanting him on their team. He was so excited to be noticed and to feel wanted by others. My son has started being depressed again and very angry because he is lost. He doesn't know what he's going to do. He is so upset that he may have to leave the friends and staff that he has come to love and trust and to call family. It has hurt me tremendously to see my son slip back from where we worked so hard to get him out of. I am asking you to take to heart the feelings of these students, parents, staff, and community members, and please reconsider your decision of shutting Payton City High School down. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Farabee, I believe that's, okay.
Before I start, I'd like to say thank you for everyone that's paid attention to everybody that talked, except for the one person with the laptop that can't be bothered to look up. I honestly don't care at this point. I'll have questions for you later.
Well, I'm just...
Payton City is a school, like most schools, that's ran like a business. Ms. Porter sees it as his business. She said in a recent article that, what was it? The plume has moved south recently. When Scott Clegg asked you that. I'd like to know the scientific data that you have that shows that. Because I have from Victoria Shantez, regional director of the Superfund site, saying it hasn't moved. If you're going to say because of the recent well testing, you're wrong. It's not due to be checked until July. You also said that you were doing it for the safety of the children. Do you have any scientific data that shows that? Or are you going by a prejudice of a school? because that's what it seems like. Everybody in this room, most of them, are either Payton City High School
Sir, you need to
students
address the board, please.
or Payton City High School graduates. I was one of Mrs. Price's first students. She taught me how to play the drums and everything else. Miss Sign was my elementary school student, principal. She asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up one time. Told her I want to be a scientist. Scientists use fact, not what they think they should say. The plume never moved south. I have the most recent map to show it from Victoria Sanchez. Been in contact with her all week. As a matter of fact, the red area of the school touches less than 1/3 of the entire school. If it was that much of a problem, I was at the Superfund site in Vienna. They would automatically call in FEMA and have them evacuate the houses around that area. So you saying that's for the safety of the kids? Show me scientific data that shows that it's for the kids. Also, I'm not sure her name, I can't remember it. She asked why we couldn't have a form to fill out, you know, for saying that we are accepting the risk of sending our kids there. You know, like you do for the asbestos in the schools. Have to have a sign, have to have a parent or guardian sign saying that they know that's in the school. What'd be the difference? I mean, if a parent or guardian's willing to accept the responsibility of their children, what difference would it make? One of my kids is supposed to graduate this year from Payton City High School. June 11th on Facebook, she got notice, like everybody's saying, from an anonymous email talking about how the school's going to be relocated. And every teacher was going to reach out separately to talk to those kids. How many teachers do you think have reached out to talk to those kids from Payton City as of yet? Not many, if any, because they don't know what to do at this point. You're saying it's a team effort. Can't be a team if it's only you wanting to do it. You want to make it so kids don't feel safe anymore? You're doing good for that. You talked about mental health whenever you first got this position. Have you asked any children about their mental health over this? No. I mean, I even saw where, what was it? The email that you sent out was so impersonal and direct that even the teachers of the students did not know what to say at the time. And I'm almost certain that the teachers in the school don't know what to say to tell the students at this time.
Sir, you'll need to end your comments, please.
What was that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that's what that beep was.
Yeah, I've got plenty of time.
That was it? That's what I said. She's resetting now. Your time was up, but you may finish your comment.
Okay. Would you ask Ms. Porter, whenever all this is over, if she's using scientific data or if she's using what she thinks she knows? Because I can promise you what she thinks she knows and what she's saying she knows is two different things compared to the scientific data. I have it right here for you.
Thank you. Next delegation, Andrew Hayes.
All right, good evening. So because I'm Night of the Golden Horseshoe, I should mention that just last week we celebrated West Virginia Day. And as West Virginia residents, we should appreciate all the history that has gone before us to help bring us to where we're at. And what West Virginia is an aggregator, consolidation of all the people, the families, the communities that make us who we are. It's the advancements in the technology, the businesses, the economic environment, the growth of the schools, the communities, everything that goes along in it is what makes us better. And what we do is we build upon the history of those who have come before us. And that's how we improve. And that's what everyone's goal should be, is how do we improve? How do we make it better for the next generation? And that goes into like parents. Parents want to have what's best for their children. Communities want to have what's best for the communities, and people choose the communities based on what they think is best. So people choose where they live, they choose who their friends are, they choose their spouses, it goes all together. So there's a common statement that the church is not the building. You know, you can call the church the building, but the church is the people, it's the congregation. It's the people that make up that body. And it's the same way with schools. Schools are not the building. It's not Peyton City High School, the structure. It's Peyton City High School, the students. It's the faculty. It's also the band boosters that support the school. Or it's the athletic boosters that help raise money for the school or for the projects or work the gates at the football games or anything else that you raise money for. So all that goes into the community. It's not just the students. It's definitely not the structure. So where the structure is doesn't matter. It's where the people are at. It's where the community gathers to educate the students at going forward. So I know we're saying we're limited. There's constraints as to what the board can do, how, what the superintendent has rational decision-making processes to make as far as the safety and the risk of the schools, to the children in the schools. But when we look back, for those who remember, in the mid-1970s, when Peyton City High School was burned down, Peyton City High School continued to exist. There was no structure, but the kids still went to school. Peyton City gathered together and was able to put the kids in the churches. And earlier we mentioned how we looked at, can the kids go to the churches for school? And that's limited based on the bureaucratic decision-making structure of the State Board of Education and others to say, hey, how can we get these kids in a place where they don't have to be transported or go to other communities to go to school? So what happens if we go outside that decision-making cycle? What if the parents make those decisions? If Wetzel County Schools can't support the students in Peyton City to go to school in Peyton City, then what stops the community, the churches, from opening up the doors without the tests so we can have kids go to school? Or what stops them from going to the former middle school to play basketball or volleyball? Or the football team keeping their football schedule and playing at the old Sistersville High School football field? There's no reason we can't do that. We don't have to go to New Martinsville to practice. Well, I remember practicing down in Peyton City Park. We drew lines on the field and practiced so we wouldn't mess up the grass up at the football field. So it can be done. There's just ways to do it. We have to look at the solutions instead of saying, well, it can't be done. What are the solutions? What are our other options? And what I'm proposing right now is there is another way. There is another option to keep the school open, to keep the kids in town, to work this around, however that may be done. And if it means that there's no money from the state during this temporary closure and people have to volunteer and we have to have retired teachers working in the schools or people donating their time, or we're working off of homeschool education programs in somebody's Sunday school class, but that's different solutions and different ways to make that happen so we can keep the kids at school. We're a little over a month from when football season's supposed to start. Now I hear they're already practicing up at Magnolia. I don't know how that's legal because they didn't do that when I was playing. But if they can get them practice and they can do unorganized practice and they can get ready for the football season, and keeping the kids together and keeping the community together can be done. And there are solutions if people are just willing to listen. So my proposal is to consider that, look at the other options, be willing to support Peyton City figuring out how we can keep Peyton City kids in Peyton City schools. Thank you.
Dalton Schulteis. I'm sorry if I've mispronounced that. Dawton Schulteis? Did he leave? We'll move ahead. If they find him, then we'll add him back on. Okay, the next person is Jane Moore.
Good evening. I'm going to move this. I'm just going to
Jane,
take
would
it
it be
out.
easier for you to sit down and do it? I mean, if you
I can stand for a period of time. Right
Okay.
now, I have a compound fracture in my spine, so I can stand for a while.
Well, if you can't, please feel free to
Thank
sit
you.
down.
Some of you I've known for quite a while. I've subbed for the past 10 years at Magnolia and New Martinsville schools and the two Payton cities. And I've made deep friendships in each one of those places and have a great deal of respect for all the people there. In Payton City, 10 years ago, we got a call from Fred King who said, "Can you and your husband come down? They're trying to close us down." And we're from a tiny town in Bellsville, Ohio. So, and we're always we're going to close you down. And so we came. And it was a great evening, a wonderful presentation by the people there, and the board voted to keep Payton City open. And a week later, Fred King called and said, "Do you hear the music? That's a parade we're having because we're open for business." And this week we got a call. "Could you and Delmas please come down?" They're trying to shut Payton City down again. And here's the thing that's hard for people to understand that do not live in a tiny town. It's like super glue's been applied between the community and the school. They're one and the same. They operate together. And I can assure you that it's hard if you haven't lived in that situation to maybe grasp what it's like. But it's so true. You just do everything as one. And you have a support that's just almost unexplainable. And I can think, and I do know that what you all can understand is that if Payton City High School doesn't exist, then it won't be long before the elementary won't either, because the students who are, where are they going to go? Where do the elementary kids go if the elementary's still functioning, but where do they go after that? And I'll tell you what our people tell us, we're taking our kids elsewhere together. We want them to, wherever if they settle in Tyler or wherever, then that's what's going to happen. And you're going to end up having empty buildings. And you're going to also end up with such a devastated town. Our real estate agent where we live said, count on at least a 25% reduction in your homes and properties. And really, it's just like a ghost town in some places that this has happened to. There's nothing left. I implore you, don't let that happen. Please consider something else. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Delmas Moore.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I come to you from a different school, but in a very similar situation. I've spent 54 years as a public school teacher at Bellsville High School. I've been an athletic director for 37 years. Mr. Castello there is a personal friend of mine. And I listened to Mr. Price in his presentation to the board. And yes, Mr. Price, pom-poms and math class and extracurricular activities are extremely important. Our school has been through a similar situation to the folks here in Payton City. We were closed at one point, and then the citizens raised $140,000 to fight that in court. The court reversed the decision, and we have been open ever since, but we're not the same. Once you lose your school and kids start migrating elsewhere, it just devastates you. We have 38 kids this year. No, excuse me, 58 kids were at Barnesville High School that should be ours. We have 16 playing sports at River and Monroe Central High School that should be ours because Ohio allows you to transfer. And it has just devastated the school and the community. Now, yes, we're open, but we're not the same. And we go back with Payton City. I can remember playing against Payton City in the 60s. We played Payton City High School and everything. And already the situation that you folks find yourself in, the schedules are not going to be the same if Payton City is reinstated. I am the athletic director at Bellsville High School. As much as I hate to do it, I have to represent my school. I've already replaced Payton City in volleyball for next year. I did not want to do that, but I have 20-some girls that I'm responsible for, and I have to look out for their best interests as well. We play Payton City in Game 9 in football, and I'm looking for a school to replace them. I don't want to do that. If I find one and I have to sign a contract, my hand will probably shake when I do that because I have great respect for Payton City. I have a long relationship with Fred King, Jeff Bowers, Robert Price. I've gotten to know Mr. Bell very well, and I don't want to see that happen. And folks, if there's any alternative other than closing your school, please consider that. Please do it. I have been through it. I know what it does to a community. I know what it does to a school, and it is devastating. One last thing, and I don't want to take time from citizens of Wetzel County, but I had a boy that played for me some years ago. He wasn't very good. I think he missed one practice in 4 years. Graduation day, he came up to me and he said, "Coach, thank you for allowing me to be part of the team because that meant the world to me." I saw him a few weeks ago. Probably 20 years has passed since he played for me, and he said, "I'll never forget you guys letting me play." Now, when you consolidate and you're no longer a small school, some of those kids will not get to play. They just absolutely will not. And I know the pride and the enthusiasm that Payton City had in their school. I look around here tonight, if I were ever going to rob a bank, I think I should have been in Payton City because the whole town is here. So thank you very much, but please look for an alternative to closing the school.
Thank you, sir. Josh Billiter. Josh Billiter. Okay, well, yeah, we'll come back to him if he comes in. This next one, I'm not sure I can say, it looks like Joey, maybe Anderson? Okay.
Well, I was going to ask a whole bunch of questions, but Mr. Price and some of the other people have already asked those, so I'm not going to waste time on that. So I got to thinking back there. I went to Payton City till 6th grade, and then I moved to Martins Ferry. And I went there until partway through my junior year. And when my mom and I moved back, we moved to New Martinsville, so I went to Magnolia. Now, I graduated from Magnolia. A lot of people don't realize that behind me. I did graduate from Magnolia. Now, we had a 20-year reunion come up in a few years back, 10 years back, and Payton City has always had big alumni stuff. I went with my cousin, who graduated from Payton City, to their get-together, and they welcomed me like I was always there. That's who I was friends with growing up. I changed schools a lot. I changed schools 3 different times. I went to 3 different schools. Now, these kids are going to have to change schools. Now, granted, they may know some of them. I knew some of them when I went to Magnolia. But I know what it's like to change schools. I know what it's like to have to make friends. And I know what it's like to lose your identity. I am a proud graduate of Magnolia High School. I'm proud of the fact that I played football there, I wrestled there, I was on the track teams. I was swallowed up in the big schools. At Payton City, I'd have been on the field. I'd have been in the game. No, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to wrestle back then, but I'd have been able to participate. Now, I want these kids to understand that if they have to go to another school, which I'm praying does not happen, I'm praying you find a way to overturn this, that they still go out for the sports that they would have played, that they try to make friends with kids who may have been former enemies, because it's going to be tough, but if you can get through it, the character that it's going to give you will be huge. So kids, please, take what life gives you and turn it to the best. Now, Pat was up here a little while ago, said he was a preacher. I also preached some. Last Sunday, I preached on joy. Find joy in all situations. Kind of hard to find joy in this. I look out my window and I see Payton City High School. We talk about the plume and all that stuff. It should affect me too. I have a thing right in the street in front of my house where they test from. Once a month, somebody comes and puts something in the ground. Yes, PCE scared me initially. But when I found out that there wasn't the risk that it was supposed to be, once we got our water cleaned up, our water department is fantastic, by the way. I'm related to most of them. My fears were allayed. Don't let what you think is the problem control what could be. Please keep Payton City High School open in any way possible. Payton City has always made sacrifices for their students. My grandfather was one of the 5 men that pushed to get Payton City High School back in the 40s, and the first class was 51, I think, 52, whatever it was. But they sacrificed. The town sacrificed. That's why all these people are here. It's ingrained in us from the time we're born that Payton City does everything they can for the school. And if the school closes, that's gone. They're not going to support near as hard or near as tough as they do right now. People gave up their wages in the 40s and 50s and 60s to build the athletic fields, to purchase typewriters. My grandfather brought stuff from the lab at Mobay to stock and put in the school. My grandfather was an educator. The best thing we can do for our kids is educate them.
And the best way we can educate them, in my opinion, is the smaller class sizes and the smaller schools. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Lisa Young.
Hey, I've stood before you before and told you my stories. Some of you probably remember, some probably don't. But the point is, first of all, the board that answered our phone calls listened to us. When we don't have answers for the kids, we don't know what to tell them. I've got one kid saying, I'm gonna go follow this teacher. Well, I've got another kid saying, I'm going way down the river. That's a risk I'm gonna have to put him at. Do I let him travel to St. Mary's every day? Or do I put him on a bus to go to Magnolia with a risk traveling there? I don't know. I can't be with the band on a Friday night and a football team and another school the same night. They don't have a mom. Their mom's in heaven. How do I tell the kids that? I can't be in two places. They don't have a supportive parent as far as fathers. I'm they got me. They've got their kids that are the best friends that they have as parents. We're getting ready to take a vacation with them right now because we're family. We're not just students. We're not just a school. We get along. We are family down there. If I need them, they're there for me, just like my parents are for me. I was told, don't ever be a bully. You grow up, you treat people with respect. She has not treated our kids with respect, not once. She has not offered any emotional support. She has not said at night, listening to the children cry, wiping tears away, hugging them because they don't know what to do. She hasn't offered anything. She didn't meet with the kids and tell them that their school was gone. She didn't. The only other support they have right now is the teachers that they had at the high school that they can talk to, but they can't give them guidance either. They don't know what's going on, just like our students don't know what's going on. I've sat back there, I've listened to everybody else talk, and I don't want to repeat everything everybody else has said. By no means do I want to do that. But we need answers. We need our school. I have one that's thinking of going to the St. Mary's. I don't know how he'll survive, honestly. I'll follow what he feels is necessary. I'll back him all I can, just like I'll back Josie all I can. But when I have a kid that is in an IEP small group that is thriving, making pretty much straight A's right now, going to go to another school that's scared to death, doesn't even know what to expect, what do I do? What do I do? I feel like I'm failing them. I don't have answers. I can't fix this problem that she's created. She does not have our kids in her best interest. She may say she does, but she does not. And I only have like a minute left, but I'd like to read something real quick that came from an EPA. This was an email. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll be happy to share it all with you, but with my time. The results the EPA has collected from the vapor intrusion sampling events at the Payne City High School do not indicate a risk to human health or the environment. However, if future sampling events indicate an unacceptable risk to human health and the environment, the EPA has the ability to quickly act through the Superfund programs to install measures. More information about the Payne City Groundwater Superfund site can be viewed, and they've attached a link. The Payne City School could also act to pursue vapor intrusion on its own if it desires. I hope this information is useful, and please let me know if you have any other questions. Sincerely, Eric Polerland. And I would be happy to show you this whole link showing what was sent to them to begin with. The main thing in this says, Payne City High School do not indicate a risk to human health or the environment. Where is she coming up with her facts at? We don't know. Thank you.
Thank you. Kelly Sign.
Good evening. I didn't prepare a speech. I wrote down some bullet points here, but I think everybody here that spoke has done a great job. And I'll tell you what, if you don't have a tear in your eye for this town, you don't have a heartbeat. And another thing, this meeting's being filmed on YouTube. Cassie, you can watch this later and leave your laptop alone. You can take notes later. It's ridiculous and it's rude.
You need to stay respectful, please.
I think that's pretty respectful. That's what you tell her. I'm a proud graduate of 1980. I had 2 daughters that graduated in 2007, 2002. They both went on to college, and they had the Promise Scholarship all 4 years. I'm very proud of my daughters. I'm the head basketball coach at Payne City High School. I was told last night, Kelly, speak from the heart. I said, I can't speak from the heart, because my heart right now is full of hate and anger. This is the most unorganized thing I've ever seen in this county. It's an embarrassment to the whole county and to the whole state of West Virginia. And I'll let you know, last week, while the superintendent meeting was going on over at Stonewall Jackson Lake Park, all the superintendents over there were talking about this county and what decision was being made. And they said it's a joke. How you people can't let this go on. You know what, one thing, I'm thankful that you're not the boss at Wetzel County Hospital or Covestro or Westlake or Momentum. How dangerous would it be for the plant manager at Momentum to say, go ahead, shut that valve off. Go ahead and send that tank down the tracks. I think it's got a leak. Maybe. Maybe not. What would happen if one of those chlorine tanks just happened to go down by Magnolia High School like what happened a few days ago, and all those tanks were sitting there right behind Magnolia, and what if one of those tanks all of a sudden decided to leak chlorine? Do you have the proper PPE in Magnolia High School? Seriously. When you go to work at a plant, one of the first things they do is they show you how to shut off the gas in your area. That's safety 101. Does anybody sit up here right now know where to turn the gas off at the Board of Education office? Do you know where to turn the gas off at Magnolia High School if something was to happen? I highly doubt it. Do you know where the crank is to turn the gas off? No. What is the plan of action if something does happen with a chlorine tank at Magnolia High School? Yeah, try. My gosh, look what happened at the north end of New Martinsville. People had their air conditioners got ruined. Chrome got ate off their cars. People got evacuated from Northgate because it was one tank leaked at Axial. It was in the paper twice, 2 different locations in the paper, that no one would lose their job. Well, I beg to differ. I was called, I had a text to come to a meeting. All coaches come to this meeting. So I went to the meeting. When the meeting was over with, I was asked to come to a closed-door meeting in the principal's office. At this meeting, I sat down with Principal Shipman, Principal Miller, and Ben McPherson. I sat down and I was told that I would not be needed to coach basketball anymore. That my contract sat on Mr. McPherson's desk, and he looked at it and said, "We're not going to need this guy." And I said, "Well, wait a minute. You're going to need me next year. It's temporary." And his response was, "There won't be no next year." Oh, yeah. Temporary. I had an interview for this job May 16th. I was told the next day I had the job. It sat on Principal Shipman's desk till Wednesday the 22nd. It went to the Board of Education, and there it sat. Last night we had our last basketball game, summer league game, and when this was over with, I asked the boys to pray. Pray that somebody up front here has the guts to do something about this.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sine. Rodney McWilliams.
If I might, the ones that you skipped, would you want to pick them back up, see if they've come back?
You can go ahead, and then we'll take the last, we'll call them back.
Let me offer a fig leaf. Ms. Porter, I take notes just like that in meetings. I understand what it looks like, but I understand what you're doing. What I don't understand is a lot of other stuff. And so much of it's already been presented, I don't want to rehash, but I do want to focus on a few items, and that is the truth, the facts, and the action. We make decisions all the time in our life. Do we make them objectively or do we make them subjectively? Objective decisions are based on facts and data, whereas subjective decisions are made on opinions and personal preferences. The question is, what are we doing with this situation? Are we using the data? We have petitions signed by 2,100 folks nationwide requesting the data, the facts, the numbers, the reports that were used to make this decision, because we have these facts, these data, these reports that say otherwise. Now, if I'm wrong and these are all wrong and the test results come back negatively, then we live with that and we deal with it and we figure out a path forward. But when the facts by the experts say there's no risk, that's been stated many times this evening. In fact, a global leader in environmental management, Tetra Tech Incorporated, performed the test. We have alumni who are experts in this field who have validated the test results. We're not going off knee-jerk reactions. We're not going off our gut feelings. We're getting this stuff in front of people who know what this is. I'm an accountant. I don't know what it is. So, our point, one of our major points is just what is it based on? Because it's been asked tonight and nothing's been shown. The EPA has had numerous public meetings in Payton City over the years. I've gone to every one. And no offense to anyone here, I've not seen anybody at this table at any of those public meetings. You operate a school in Payton City. Wouldn't you want to know what's going on with EPA in Payton City? And as far as several notes that came up during the discussion that I just kind of had to ad-lib in here, the cost of remediation. It was stated that the cost was too high, but what is the cost? We have the treasurer right here. If he doesn't know the numbers, then nobody does. And that's not to single Mr. Lancaster out. I'm just saying that's the profession that he's in. The cost of remediation needs to be made known. The answers to the 10 questions from the State Department of Education need to be made public. They were never made public. They were read out loud, but there was never any follow-up in a public board meeting. How did those get responded to? And I know your counsel has told you not to answer questions. it's not that you're not allowed to answer questions. A state ranking official called me personally. When I mean high ranking official, I mean a high ranking official whose name matches somebody in Washington. And he said, they owe you answers, Rodney. Their counsel can tell them not to answer, but they owe you answers. You owe us answers. And that's not to put you on the spot. That's just a state of fact. We are the electorate. This is a public forum. We deserve answers, and we demand answers. As far as the CEFP is concerned, and the relocation on a temporary basis to something that's not in the CEFP, granted, the CEFP would need to be modified. It's also going to need to be modified for this little tidbit of information. This state ranking official told me that once the local board approves the modification to CEFP, it's a rubber stamp at the state level. It's a rubber stamp. So you all can decide to put these kids in temporary modular office or trailers if that's what's needed. And once you decide that, the State Department is going to have a hard time turning you away. Now, granted, they might have precedent. But, you know, do the hard work, folks. Consolidation's an easy way out. This is an easy way out. It's time to buckle down and do the hard work. This is a smack in the face to Payton City because you all voted against this type of merger just 8 months ago. And I know this is based on safety, and I applaud the administration for their concern, the safety of our students. We don't want our students in an unsafe building by any means. We don't. And to their credit, and I say there, to the credit of the administration, I applaud them for taking the safety as a priority. Education really is the #1 priority, but safety I agree with. But the fact that the board voted this type of, and the word was used by the administration tonight, merger. The fact that the board voted 5-0 against a merger, and yet this end-around game was pulled to create a de facto merger is a slap in your face.
You'll need to finish up, please. Thank you.
And I appreciate the time.
Did Dalton Schulteis come back? No? Okay, how about Josh Billiter?
I had signed in on the delegations.
Okay, I may have missed you. I've had that happen before. Yes, Stacy, please speak. That's my error. If you can ask Mr. Taylor, I do that. I have a vision impairment, and I have missed them before.
President Fonner, members of the board, Wetzel County office staff, the past 2 weeks have been a whirlwind of emotions. I'm exhausted. I've reached out to many of you with a host of issues that not only involve the closure of Payton City High School, but Wetzel County schools as a whole. Misinformation presented by this office to the public regarding the EPA Superfund site, words manipulated and misused, unethical practices, poor communication and zero transparency. The judgment call to close the school with no validating expert-backed evidence, in fact, quite opposite. Again, I point back to the release document by the EPA in January 2024 that everybody has told you today. There is no risk. I've, for the first time, started to hear things about an environmental specialist. I'm gonna ad-lib for a second and say one environmental specialist compared to the federal EPA, who employ a host of chemical engineers, environmental engineers, people employed by a federal agency to do this job. Let's bounce that a little bit and think. The biggest issue of all that I have as a parent, a teacher, and a community member is what took place on January 11th, 2024. 6:08 p.m., while you all were indisposed at a board meeting, an automated email went out with very little information to us, but basically said, your school is being shut down. Our students, may I please just turn for a moment? Students, stand up. For So stand up. Our students were not given the respect or decency to be told this news by anyone. They found out by social media, Facebook, Instagram, and word of mouth. That one, that's my son. That's my son who had to find out by word of mouth, by Instagram, Facebook, and then his mother crying because she got pulled off of a softball field while she was trying to enjoy her last game with her daughter. Can you imagine how these kids felt? We're talking about mental health. We're talking about what's best for these kids. We're talking about their best interest. Nobody to support them, no plan, no real plan, just, hey guys, stay tuned. This situation is being compared to the consolidation of Tyler County by many. It's quite different. They had time, they were supported, they were informed, they were not left in limbo, they were not left scared, and they were not left hurting. The county is just now gathering a plan for these kids and staff, but primarily the kids. This should have been done long ago. When I spoke to Mr. McPherson, he stated, when we saw the rain coming. Well, when you saw that rain coming, these kids should have been put first. In 2022, I attended the SREB Making Schools Work Conference in Texas. I listened to a middle school principal speak about caring for each and every student in his middle school of around 500 students. He stated that one year he started the year off by placing the names of each and every student on the floor of their gymnasium. He had his staff sitting in the stands and had them come down, and he said, find the names of all of these students that you feel like you are connected with. When they were done, there was 100 students left lying on the floor. 100 names left lying on the floor. He knew then and there that that was unacceptable, that you have to make a connection and you have to take the time to care for each and every student in your building and in your care. Well, Wetzel County Schools, on June 11th, it sure felt like you left 176 plus students thrown on the floor with no help, no support, and nobody to help get them through this. And board members, I implore you now to not forget that. Not forget what happened to these students that day.
Thank you. So that I don't mess up again, was there anyone else that signed up that I did not call you? And I do apologize, Mrs. Yoho, that I missed your name. All right, so that's the end of the delegations. Do I have a motion to? That's what I was going to ask, if we're going to have a motion to pull it off the table. Okay, go ahead and do that.
Thank you, Mrs. Bonner. I apologize.
No. Do we have a motion to take the tabled item and bring it back on the table? It's been moved by Mrs. Nice to bring it back on the table. Is there a second? Second. It's been seconded by Mr. Castello. All those in favor of bringing it back to the table say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. I'm not sure where to start. I have so many notes. First of all, Mrs. Porter, one thing that I heard from many people is the counseling situation and all. I'm sure we have funds that maybe we could bring in counselors from other schools too and get that started right away for students to be able to have somebody to talk with.
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually putting together a plan right now to meet with students, and we have-
You need to stop. You need to stop. I have really tried to keep things calm tonight, and I really, truly appreciate how everyone has done such a good job of staying respectful. But she also has the right to say something too. Go ahead.
As I was saying, I do plan to, in the very near future, meet with any student that's willing to meet with me. I've had lots of students email me and ask me questions. They didn't want to meet, they just wanted responses. They had some things that they wanted to talk about. And actually, Mr. Barkis and I have talked extensively about the counseling situation and making sure we have a plan in place. So if we need to put that plan in place earlier than this fall, then absolutely we will do that.
I think it needs to be immediate. Okay. Somebody else have a comment from the board? This is board discussion now.
I'm trying to give everybody a chance here. I want to come back. I asked similar questions in my list. There are kind of two things you're kind of unpacking here. There's a what and a how, and we got to kind of talk about those two things differently. So I submit again, was there anything other than the publicly available data and information from the EPA that was used to determine this decision to temporarily close Payton City High School? Was there any other data, information, besides what's publicly readily available by the EPA, that drew us to this decision?
As I stated before, we consulted with the State Department, legal counsel, and several environmental specialists on how to proceed with this. This is not an easy choice. Some of you have not been very nice in the way you've spoken tonight. I am trying to do the best that I can possibly do for your children. I know that you don't all see that. I know that you're hurting. I know that everybody has a different way to process this. As a team, the Board of Education, the people that work at central office have been working very diligently to try to figure out what we can do in the best interest of our students.
One thing I wanted to comment on too, unless, were you ready to say something
No,
else?
no, you're fine.
This is a temporary closure. I know any closure's tough, but this is a temporary. If it would get to a complete closure, a permanent closure, we would have to go through all the steps through the State Department with hearings and everything else. This is still at this point a temporary closure.
Please remember also, can I please say this, that the EPA is still, according to their documentations, which I think most of you have, is still going to continue doing their testing through at least spring of 2025. At that point, they hope to come up with whatever plan it is for them to mitigate the situation. When that mitigation happens, we will not be able to be at that site depending on what form of action they take. We need to be proactive, we need to think of our students, and we will 100% do whatever we possibly can to make this transition easier. I know some parents out there, I've heard, did not know that the faculty is going with the students and also the principal and the counselor and the CIS person at this point. They are going with the students. They are going to be there for the students. Please I need to make sure that everybody understands that. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Price, did you want to say something again?
I don't judge. I want you, Ms. Porter, I want you to understand, I'm not judging your motives in this at all. I have an obligation to ask questions. It's what we do.
I would surely hope that you're not judging my motives, Mr. Price.
Well, that's all I need to hear.
we need to have the discussion here. It's not listed as a board discussion or vote. Mr. Price, do you have something else?
The superintendent's the only one that can turn this around tonight.
Thank you.
And you're the only one that's heard all of this, all these information. Again, I fully acknowledge that on April the 3rd, I knew we were most likely heading this way. I said it in that public meeting, and those who were there heard me say it, and you can go back and listen. I understood that the state was leading us down this path. Fully acknowledge that. But I don't feel like we've done, these folks are losing their school, and I'm not trying to be hard here. There's nobody in this room that believes once they're out of there, they'll ever come back. Nobody. And I'm sorry, I'm just saying, I've been around this enough and seen these things enough. And that's why the community deserves to, anyway, I don't understand why that's a problem to understand that the only cited source, official source that's been cited is the EPA. And they said, we don't have a problem at Payton City High School. And according to their data, and if the state's forcing our hand, I don't know, but I have trouble with a decision made when all along I kind of felt like, well, that's what this was about. The state was pushing us. But anyway, I think it's premature. If the EPA hasn't, and this board has a right, we can't vote, but we can speak. And I believe it's premature. I said that in a committee meeting, by the way. And in that discussion, I just feel like, and to the how, I owned my part of the mistake on that. I readily admit to you as a board member, I failed you. I should have had an agenda item every single meeting, so that way we could keep this fresh in your minds. That's me. I own that. But my land. How in the world did we not sit down with staff members? How did we not have it? I don't understand that at all. I don't understand that at all. And
Mrs. Nice, do you have anything? Mr. Castello, do you have anything? Mr. Glasscock?
That's all we can do at this point in time.
Okay. I make a motion for adjournment of this meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Mrs. Nice for adjournment. Further discussion? Okay. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye. 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 Opposed? One no. Motion carries. Mr. Price, was yours no or yes? 4 yes and 1 no by Mr. Glasscock. Meeting is adjourned.